I'd like to thank Steve Mariani for joining us today on the Business Bite and for sharing his wealth of information on SBA lending. What are those not so hard hit industries?
So these are ones we have in our pipeline right now and that we're just doing more and more of. Lenders really like them a lot. They're not so affected. The lumber and building suppliers, like I said, we did a roofing company and house addition company. I mean, both in the $4 million range that we're just doing fabulous this year. For those who don't know, we've seen an uptick in the construction industry since last year, since everyone was stuck at home looking at their ugly houses. That's the only thing we can surmise. They're home. It's a good time for construction people to be there, and they're sick of looking at those broken doors. But the construction industry has really had a kick up. So we're real happy in the construction. There are some lenders that still don't think they're a good buy, but the majority of ours are doing really well. Other things, spas, pools, tree services, all of these are doing really well. Security services are on the uptick. We're seeing all those on a higher level here in Raleigh and most places, I think. But plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, they're not going anywhere. If you have a leak in your house, it's getting fixed one way or another. So in-home healthcare providers, interesting in that industry because we do a lot of those in that sector. And they had a drop off in the very beginning when no one would give their mom to the healthcare provider or let them come into their house and things like that. But 2-3 months down the road, and I do have a 95-year-old mom, so I can absolutely relate. 2-3 months down the road, everybody came back to the in-home healthcare providers. So we saw it just dip for a few months and then come right back on the radar. So their numbers went right back up again. Pawn shops are doing more of them. And as you can imagine, they're doing well, not only from a trade your thing in and get cash, but from a firearm, ammo, and that perspective. And it's funny because I do a lot by you, Miss Susie.
No, you
There's
didn't.
a few. Yeah, we do a lot in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're doing one right now too for another buyer that we worked with before that has a few in Texas already.
Super.
But yeah, they're great. We know them well and we're real comfortable with them. CPA firms, again, it was a little difference in revenue. They weren't killing it in March and April, but we all knew they were going to get their money in, and sure enough, that's what happened. It leveled out through the year in that first 6 or 8 months of last year. So, CPA firms, again, are not going anywhere. Unless they're in those hard-hit industries, that's where they specialize. That might be a different concern, but not from what we're seeing. The majority of them are pretty diverse. Exterminating and pest control, and manufacturing is always on our list. They had a dip and maybe even were closed for a few months, depending upon the amount of workers that they had. But the demand was always there. So they opened, when they did open back up, it went right back up. So those are some of the ones that we're working on right now, and lenders are really targeting. I will expand on this. When we talked about the PPP money, the first round went to a lot of people that didn't need it. And here's what I'm also learning. Those companies are really prime targets for acquisitions because a lot of those people took it because they were offered it and used it to shore up their balance sheets, buy new equipment, and just overall put it back into the company 9 times out of 10. And I'm seeing them now where they didn't need the money, they did great things with their company, and those are acquisition targets in my world. And I wanted to point that out. So if you find somebody that's not participating in the second round, because they would have had to have been hurt, but was a good operator before, you might look at them as targets.
And speaking of different types of companies, where would 3 or 4 really good companies that are helping others in either staffing, the ones who staff government jobs are not doing so good, the ones staffing CEOs, we have one in the industry specific of engineering industries only. Staffing companies we're getting a mixed review on. Where are you seeing that? Oops.
It depends on what industry they're staffing. We like staffing companies. We actually look at in-home healthcare a lot like staffing, because they're typically lower level, not healthcare providers. They're in-home healthcare providers, but they're only support. Non-medical is what I want to say. So if they're non-medical, they almost mirror staffing companies. We like them. We haven't seen a lot of them, and we don't do a lot of staffing companies, but they've always been high on our list. So they should not be an issue. I don't know what the COVID months look like over a year, but aside from that, we have no concern with those. There again, I like them because they're a high profit margin, low overhead type industry. And those are the ones we really go after.